Nathan, I'm so excited to talk to you. You and I have a very similar path through education. I figured out very young that I had this thing, right? What was it like for you? When did you start figuring out that your brain was just different and you worked differently?
I was always an active kid growing up, and when I was real young, it didn't really present an issue in school. It wasn't really until about third grade that I started to get in trouble because I was acting out or being a crazy kid at recess. I was just in an environment where that wasn't really tolerated. It was kind of just labeled as like a defiant child. It kind of just continued that way up until high school when I actually would realize that I had ADHD. I got a diagnosis maybe a year after that. So it was a process. For a while, I just was really acting out in school. So it was a really interesting manifestation of ADHD.
That's actually very similar to me. It was just like, you're like crawling out of your skin all the time, and when you have to sit still in school for several hours, you just don't really know how to do that. I don't know if I still know how to do that, to be honest. I've tried to design a life that I don't have to do that. It appeared like you were defiant, and knowing you as well as I do now, that's not you at all.
Certainly not anymore.
But that was just the appearance, that was the manifestation, like what you said.
I took on the role of being a troubled child. Back then, the paradigm was just a bit different. You were just expected to learn to cope, and it's not to say that the school didn't try to support us and help us, but it was just a disconnect between the way I was learning and the way that they were trying to teach us.
You come from a very highly educated family as well. Did that add more pressure to you, or did you feel like you just were who you were?
I don't know if it added more pressure. I always wanted to be good in school. I never failed a lot of classes. I'd get decent grades, but I would just get in a lot of trouble. I just had those behavioral issues because I was so active and I just wanted to run around all the time. My dad has worked in academics his whole career, so I have a real passion for learning. I just didn't understand how to adapt it myself to learn.
It's such an interesting dynamic that a lot of us face, where it's like we're so passionate about learning and we almost can't take in enough information. Middle school and high school, it sounds like your grades were good. Did you go to college? What did that look like?
I took a gap year after my senior year of high school. I went to a program in Montana where I learned to backcountry ski, and I was with a small group of kids there. I had some maturing to do after high school, to say the least. After that, which was a great experience, I went and moved to Boulder with the intention of going to University of Denver. I had applied early decision. I was an environmental sciences major.
I'm the biggest fan of gap programs. I can't tell you how many 17, 18-year-olds I meet who, like, you can see it coming, that freshman year is just not going to go well because that maturity just isn't quite there. But if you give it some time and you have a purposeful gap year, and that can look a lot of ways. It can look like a formal program. It can look like doing a mission trip for your church or your organization, whatever that looks like, whatever that is. But if it's purposeful, it tends to go well. I'm a huge fan of that. When you go to University of Denver your freshman year, what happened?
I had a positive experience, met a lot of great people, good teachers, and a good experience, at least the first half of the year, but it very quickly became overwhelming kind of towards the end of the first semester. Wonder why. But I just was not prepared for finals. I didn't have any study skills, and I'd kind of just scraped by. I hadn't created any systems that were benefiting me. I was just spending all day trying to work, and it just broke me down. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I was questioning if I even wanted to go to school. I actually dropped out after my freshman year. Like you said, I needed to have a plan, so I very quickly found a job at a startup where these guys were able to kind of provide me some mentorship. That was the first time in my life where I was really able to get some guidance on all the different ways that you can perform work, all the different opportunities to contribute to a company, how that fits into the way that I learn. I very quickly decided that I wanted to do geography because I really liked the GIS data stuff. It just clicked with me. When I was ready to go back to school, I did some classes online. As soon as I was able to get the in-state tuition for CU, I was back at CU.
If you don't implement systems, habits, and routines at the beginning of the year appropriately of your college year, let's say August, September, whatever that is, we don't see the meltdown to happen usually until November, December.
Right.
Most people think it happens right away. It's like, if you don't do the right things early on, it doesn't melt down until like the end of the semester, end of the quarter.
I at least was able to make it seem like I was holding it together pretty well. I'd say a fair amount of kids have that ability. It doesn't always serve their best interests. It's really easy to scrape by until you aren't able to scrape by.
We especially see this with intelligent people. You've always been able just to show up and do good enough. And then one day you can't. So then you go to CU Boulder. You're essentially starting college over again. You're a little bit older. It freaks out a lot of kids and a lot of parents. Like, what happens if I go back to college and restart at 2021?
It was a little nerve-wracking. I just went in with the mind frame that I was gonna take each class for what it was and try and make a relationship with the professors, because that was also something I did not do before.
How did you get that insight?
My dad. My dad has all the insight with that kind of stuff. It really doesn't take much, and it's can be nerve-wracking. Teachers have all sorts of interesting personalities. The one commonality is that if you go up to them after that first class or before, they're gonna be stoked about it and they're gonna remember you. And just even like sitting kind of towards the front, asking some questions makes a huge difference.
Build a relationship before there's a problem. There may never be a problem, but build a relationship regardless. Go to office hours at the very beginning of this semester, because first of all, no one does, and there's no pressure on you. Those are great insights. And if people know, whether it's professors, whether it's middle school teachers, whether it's elementary school teachers, counselors, if people know that you're invested, everything changes for you.
Everything. You got the support system around you, right?
Yeah.
And it's a time when the support system you've had your whole life is probably farther away than it was.
Structured to unstructured, right?
Yeah, you got to supplement that. You can't just supplement it with friends, because even if they're great study partners, you need some adults in your life to be able to guide you and show you what's right and wrong.
Why would you try to use willpower? Like, let's say for the structure you choose office hours with your TA and your professor. A lot of people are like, no, I got it. Like, what? For me, it's like, why would I waste all that willpower on that when I could just have a structured environment?
Right.
Like, it's half the work. Like, let's make this easy here.
Yeah.
I may not want to go to office hours, but it's going to save me, for every 30 minutes, it saves us an hour and a half to 2 hours on the back end. But not only that, the mental health side of it, it saves us all this negative self-talk, because in all this like willpower, we need to do the thing.
When and if you need to reach out to that teacher at some point because you missed an assignment or you're having difficulty contacting your group, whatever it may be, they're going to approach it totally differently if they know who you are versus someone that they don't even know if you've been in their class. Not to mention tons of job opportunities that teachers can help students get set up with. It's a big pathway to success.
That's a great insight as well. You went to University of Colorado after TU. It sounds like you were in a much better spot and the path was much more smooth all the way through. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, absolutely. To say the least, even through COVID, I did a lot of online classes. I was dedicated to actually writing down the material, keeping the materials that they present us with, and building off of all that.
A lot of people feel insecure even with the thought of graduating college at 25 or 26. They build it up in their head as something, and they use it as an excuse, maybe not even to go back after they struggle. What was it like for you?
It was nerve-wracking, but the paradigm has really shifted around people going back to school. Walking around campus, you see people of all ages. Universities are just a place for people that want to be educated, but more and more so we're seeing people take time off and go have experiences while they're young that can provide them some clarity, some guidance, some maturity.
I talk to 20-year-olds all the time who have bombed out the first time, and their biggest reason why they won't go back is this insecurity about what people think about them being a little bit older on campus. So hearing from you,
no one's thinking about it.
No,
like no one even knows how old you are.
And that's exactly what my message is, and so it's really nice to hear that my message is actually on point with someone who's been through the process.
Yeah. No, I didn't ever have someone be like, "How old are you?"
What advice would you give to someone who just finished that struggle? Either they're on academic probation or they bombed out of college.
I mean, I would say the first step is just a bit of self-reflection, and that is different than self-criticism. It means looking at what happened and understanding why you felt like you weren't able to adapt. That's the first step, because then you can try and figure out what you want to improve on before you go back. You don't need to know everything, but you need to have a little bit of self-awareness and where am I struggling? What isn't clicking for me? And there's also tons of people that are happy to help you figure that out.
I love your perspective as well. From my experience doing this over and over with this type of students, the areas of struggle are routines, not having good routines, not accessing whether it's campus resources or outside resources, and then not building an accountability. So routines, resources, and accountability are kind of the big three that I see as a common pattern.
The accountability and the support is huge. It's very difficult to go from having parents or some sort of parental supervision to having none. Not only that, but you're in an environment with a ton of other kids that are just experiencing the same feeling. But routines and habits, that's the crux of it.
Thank you, my friend. So great to talk to you. I love that you're able to share what you went through and, just be at peace with it and remind everyone that, like, whether you graduate at 21, 22, 25, 26, like, it's okay. Like, it's okay.
Absolutely.